All right, guys, welcome to another rebooking of SummerSlam. This time we're going to talk about SummerSlam 2015. And before I talk about the card, let me tell you guys the matches on the card. So the first match, Sheamus defeats Randy Orton. Then we got the New Day defending their tag team titles against the Primetime Players, Los Matadores, and the Lucha Dragons. Dolph Ziggler versus Rusev ends in a double countout. Then we got Neville and Stephen Amell defeating King Barrett and Stardust. And for the IC title, we got Ryback defeating the Big Show and the Miz. And then the tag team match, we got Dean Ambrose and Roman Reigns versus the Wyatt Family. And then for the winners take all WWE and US Championship, Seth Rollins defeats John Cena. Then we got Team PCB defeats Team Bad and Team Bella. Then we got Kevin Owens defeating Cesaro. And the main event, we got Undertaker defeating Brock Lesnar. So when you guys look at this card, I think it was a pretty good card. I mean, the matches were solid, just a lot of weird finishes on this card. I don't know if you guys remember, but the main event of SummerSlam, uh, the ring bell keeper rang the bell because he saw Undertaker tap out, but the referee didn't see it, and the referee didn't signal for him to ring the bell, so that was kind of weird. And then like Taker gave him a low blow, so it's kind of like it's Taker turning heel, so that was kind of odd. And then uh, Seth Rollins versus John Cena. It was a great match, but the ending again, you have I don't even know that celebrity's name. I forgot his name. What's his name? You, John Stewart? Yeah, I think it was John Stewart. Yeah. So he hit Cena with a chair, and then Seth Rollins hit the pedigree on the chair, and Seth Rollins won both the U.S. and and retained his title. But it was just odd because he explained on Raw like he didn't want him to beat Ric Flair and all that, and then Cena just gave him an AA, and yeah, we never heard from him again. And yeah, just looking at this card, the IC title picture, Ryback had the belt, which is like, and then you put him against the Big Show and the Miz, nah, not good. The Dolph Ziggler, Rusev, Lana, Summer Rae storyline, you know, that was kind of rough the way they executed it. I it could be a good idea too, because Lana was getting face reactions, get her away from Rusev, but then the very next month they announced their engagement or something, so this storyline was scrapped. Randy Orton versus Sheamus once again at SummerSlam. That it wasn't good in 2010 and it wasn't good here in 2015. So yeah, I mean this card definitely you know could use some help. It was okay, but definitely could have been better. So let's get into my card right now. So the first match I have on my card is the Bella Twins versus Charlotte and Natalya. So you know, this was a pretty big SummerSlam for the women in terms of Sasha Banks, Becky Lynch, and Charlotte finally, making the main roster. But, you know, I just wasn't feeling how they were brought in. Team Bella, Team PCB, which was not good. Um, and Team Bad, which was okay because he had some good characters in there, but just the dynamic, I felt like personally I would debut him, much better. And yeah, I mean, but this is a good way to debut Charlotte. I'd have the Bella Twins pick on Natalia. They're kind of jealous, saying, "Oh, we didn't have royal family, to make it far in this business. We had to put in the work, yada yada." And then Natalia can be like, "Actually, the reason why people don't praise you like me is because I actually did put in the work in the dungeon. I'm not trying to be a reality TV star and all that." And they could jump Natalia, and then Charlotte makes her debut on the main roster, and she saves Natalia. And these two have history because Natalia lost an NXT title match to Charlotte, so and then Charlotte it also comes from a royal family, so she can sympathize with Natalia, and she has Natalia's back, and it'd be a fun way to debut Charlotte, and I'd have Charlotte and Natalia get the win. All right, the next match, another tag team match: Neville and Stephen Amell versus Sheamus and Bad News Barrett. So, uh, this was a similar match on the card. But instead of Stardust, who was not on my card, I'd have him team with Sheamus and Wade Barrett because they were slowly starting to form the League of Nations. So I think it'd be kind of cool to start their team friendship here, and yeah, so it'd be the same thing where the League of Nations are starting to form. Sheamus and Barrett, they're trying to get Neville in because he's also um, I believe he's from the UK as well. So they're trying to get Neville to join the group. Neville doesn't want to join them, and they keep jumping him. And similar story, Neville says, "I got some backup," and then Stephen Amell comes out. I believe Stephen Amell was the Green Arrow, and Neville's finisher was called the Red Arrow. So they have some sort of friendship there, and yeah, he helps even the odds. And again, I have the faces win when you have a celebrity. Usually, 99% of the time they win. So you know that's that. And then we got the tag team championship match. I'd have the New Day versus the Lucha Dragons. The New Day were very entertaining at this point. They just turned heel. People were booing them out the building, and actually WWE actually listened to the fans for once, and they turned the New Day heel. And New Day were so entertaining. And then the Lucha Dragons, they're a hot team because they just came from NXT. They were former NXT Tag Team Champions. So yeah, just have Lucha Dragons become number one contenders, and in the build, the New Day could mock the Lucha Dragons. They could like wear like Lucha masses and just mock them and all that. And the Lucha Dragons can do some high flying stuff and gets the New Day scared and all that. So that'll be the build, and I'd have the New Day win because New Day, they were building their tag team reign. They had like the longest tag team reign, so I'd actually have them champions coming into it. So yeah, you gotta keep it going. So that's that. And then we got the Divas Championship, which was called at the time. Um, Paige versus Naomi. Yeah, I don't know if you guys remember, but Naomi did turn on Paige earlier in the year. But I'd say that for here, Paige and like Naomi she was a face, but she turns on Paige after a tag team match, and she turns to the fans saying, "Oh, the fans didn't cheer her. They just want to cheer for Paige, and she's gonna be selfish and look out for herself and all that." So kind of like a former friends going at it feud. And this is where I debut Sasha Banks. I would hold off on Becky Lynch for a bit, but I'll debut Sasha Banks on this card. She helps Naomi win the belt, and that's where they kind of formed a team bad. Because some of these teams like PCB was kind of forced, Team Bella was kind of forced, but I feel like Team Bad would be a good way to get Sasha onto the main roster, and eventually it'd be Sasha versus Naomi down the line. So I think it's a good way to debut Sasha and give Naomi a big win. She definitely deserved it at this point. And then we got Dolph Ziggler versus Rusev. So I kept this match on the card. Um, yeah, I guess to play it safe, I don't know if I should have Lana a part of the storyline or it's just a feud. But I could have Lana. She's kind of like get impressed by Ziggler and all that. There's a match where she's kind of like in awe of Ziggler. Rusev kind of gets jealous, and Ziggler kind of realizes that, and he starts like flirting with Lana and all that, and Lana's slowly liking him. But in this match, I'd actually have Lana turn on Ziggler, um, and stick with Rusev because that's kind of what they did anyways. And yeah, it'd just be all a ruse. Lana's just trying to get in Ziggler's head and helps Rusev get a big win. Yeah, and then we got Randy Orton versus Cesaro. Uh, I think this would be a great match. Number one. Number two, Cesaro. He was kind of in a flux because he was in a tag team with Tyson Kidd. But Tyson Kidd, he obviously got hurt. Unfortunately, he can't wrestle again. He retired. So Cesaro was kind of lost. He did have a match with Kevin Owens, which was a pretty good match. I felt like fighting a main eventer would elevate him even more. So I don't know if you guys remember that podcast where Vince said Cesaro he needs to grab the brass ring, stuff like that. So Cesaro could come out and say, he wants to grab the brass ring. He challenges Randy Orton at SummerSlam, and Randy could say, "Hey." Randy accepts the challenge, but Randy could say, "You know what? You're good, but you're not great like me, and I'm gonna prove it at SummerSlam." So it's kind of a face versus face respect match, where Cesaro's seeking respect, and Randy Orton is trying to show him like he's still the man and all that. I actually give Cesaro the win. He was getting real hot at this time, and yeah, it's a damn shame what they did to Cesaro, to be honest. But it is what it is. All right, next match we got the IC Championship match: Dean Ambrose versus Roman Reigns. Yeah, friend versus friend. So Dean Ambrose, he won the IC Championship. Oh, he was a former IC champion. He lost it obviously at WrestleMania to Daniel Bryan, but I haven't regained it back and all that. And him and Reigns, they'll be friends for a bit. And Reigns will just one day say he wants to challenge Dean Ambrose for the IC Championship, and Dean Ambrose says, "Hey," he accepts. So it's kind of like a friend versus friend match, you know. And Roman wants to prove that he was the man in the Shield. Dean Ambrose wants to prove he's the man in the Shield. So it's not a respect match, but they can have a couple of tag team matches where they accidentally hit each other. Slowly builds the tension. Um, but yeah, I'd actually have Dean Ambrose win the match, retain the belt, and this would be my catalyst to slowly turn Reigns heel. Um, which probably would never happen, but if I was booking WWE, this would be a way for me to slowly turn Reigns heel, and then I'd eventually um, they did have a match at Survivor Series for the vacated belt, and that's when I'll have Reigns turn on turn heel, align himself with the Authority, and then that's where I would start Ambrose's chase, and he would face Reigns at WrestleMania 32. But hey, that's long term booking, but I got to start it somewhere. So yeah, SummerSlam. Ambrose beats Reigns clean. Reigns reluctantly shakes his hand, and we go from there. Then we got the U.S. Championship match. John Cena versus Kevin Owens. So the same build they had at Elimination Chamber. I would have hold it off on KO coming into Raw just because I wanted to save this match for SummerSlam. Their match at Elimination Chamber was awesome. It was definitely the best match, or second or third best match of the year. Um, and I felt the first match they had at the Elimination Chamber was the best match of the series. Just because it was so unpredictable. Kevin Owens won, everyone was shocked, and then we kind of knew, the rematch Cena was gonna win, and so and then of course Cena he always wins the feud. It's been happening. Against Bray Wyatt. He loses one and he wins the next one. Happened against Rusev. He loses one and he beats him like two, three more times. So yeah, that kind of got stale with Cena, but if you had their first match here and that's where Kevin Owens gets to win, I think it'll be a great moment. Establishes Kevin Owens as a big player on the big stage. And then semi main event, we got The Undertaker and Sting versus the Wyatt family. So I'd have the Wyatts come out. And at this time, Eric Rowan was injured, and Braun Strowman didn't debut yet. So just keep that in mind. It'd be Bray and Luke Harper. Bray would call out Undertaker. He says, he's not done with him and all that. And when he calls him out, that's when Luke Harper, he would come and rejoin the Wyatt family. Because I don't know if you guys remember, Luke Harper kind of left the Wyatt family. Bray Wyatt kind of let him and Rowan leave. But yeah, this would be where Luke Harper rejoins the Wyatts, and they both jump the Undertaker, and I'd actually have Kane come out, and Taker announces that he's gonna be his partner and all that. But the Wyatt family take out Kane. They injure him. Uh, they just beat the hell out of him, injure him, and Taker has to come up with a partner, and it's still unknown to this day. And then SummerSlam comes, and that's when I have Sting come out. And yeah, this would slowly build to the Sting versus Undertaker match that I'll probably have at Survivor Series or WrestleMania 32. Obviously, Sting did get injured, so it kind of puts like a what if, but um, yeah. So I think it'll be a great match. Sting and Taker get the win, and then they shake hands after, and they kind of have a nice little stare off. Um, and then the lights go out, and Taker's disappeared, and then Sting, he's kind of looking in awe. So it slowly builds their feud, and yeah, they get a nice win over the Wyatt family. And in the main event, we got Seth Rollins defending against Brock Lesnar. Yeah, this match obviously did happen at Battleground, um, which was okay. Obviously, it's known for Taker returning and then low blowing Brock and all that, setting up the SummerSlam match. But I felt like these two could have had a great match, and they did have a great match. Was it 4 SummerSlams later? So and they also showed great chemistry in their Royal Rumble match, which was great. So yeah, I mean the build would be simple. Brock kind of got suspended. I don't know if you remember, he F5 Michael Cole, he F5 the cameraman, and Seth will be celebrating after retaining his belt in the last pay per view, and then Brock will come out and say his suspension's over, and he's coming for the belt. He's cashing in his rematch cause at SummerSlam, and you can have the same kind of build they had at Battleground, where Brock, he destroys J&J security, he destroys there's a car they gave him, Brock destroys that, so yeah, it slowly builds to Rollins keeps running away, so it slowly builds the anticipation for Brock to get his hands on him. And yeah, for the most part, I'd actually have Lesnar dominate. And this is actually where I'd have Undertaker come out. You know, and this is where I'd have him no attack Lesnar while the ref is down. This is where I have Rollins get the win. That's the problem with the Battleground match with Seth Rollins. The match just ended. Seth Rollins just disappeared when Taker came out. But at least this match will have a conclusive finish where Rollins, he gets the pin on Lesnar. And then this is where I'd build, towards their Hell in a Cell match down the line. So, yeah. And that's where I'd actually have, the Hell in a Cell with Taker and Lesnar. That's where I'd have Sting come out and, he'd attack Taker in the cell. And then that would build towards, their WrestleMania match eventually. So, yeah. So as you can see, I try to have great matches on this card, but also slowly use SummerSlam to, further get into WrestleMania, which obviously I'm not going to get into, but that's kind of what I use SummerSlam for. And yeah, so let me know what you guys think of the card. I'm going to run down through it right now. SummerSlam 2015. Charlotte and Natalya versus the Bella Twins. Neville and Stephen Amell versus Sheamus and Bad News Barrett. The New Day versus the Lucha Dragons for the World Tag Team Championship. For the Divas Championship, Paige versus Naomi. Dolph Ziggler versus Rusev. Randy Orton versus Cesaro for the Intercontinental Championship. Dean Ambrose versus Roman Reigns for the U.S. Championship. John Cena versus Kevin Owens. Undertaker and Sting versus the Wyatt Family, and for the WWE World Heavyweight Championship, Seth Rollins versus Brock Lesnar. Appreciate you guys for listening, and peace.